I'm Amy Cherry. This local news is a service of Flagler County's Toyota dealer, Beaver Toyota, here to wow ya. The latest COVID-19 numbers in Flagler County are a mixed bag. John Arking takes a look.
Flagler Health Officer Bob Snyder gave an update Wednesday on the situation, telling officials there were 976 total positive cases in the county as compared to just 383 4 weeks ago. Of those 976, 707 were from Palm Coast zip codes. Snyder said the positivity rate is 7.3% for the last 14 days, and while it's been stable the last 10 days, it was just at 1% only a few weeks ago. He said they've seen some stabilization in hospitalizations at 14%, which is lower than last week, but the overall workload remains high. 4 weeks ago, there were about 100 positive cases and tracing calls per day. Now it's at about 400 per day, but he said there are two factors heading in the right direction.
Emergency room visits for COVID-19-like symptoms began a downward trend the week of July 12th. That has been sustained. And the RT value, which is the reproduction rate of the virus from an infectious person to another, is less than 1.0. It is now 0.97. The lower the better for decreasing transmission.
Snyder says, as with all 67 county health departments, the public health strategy is still focused on testing, tracing, isolating, and monitoring for hotspot areas, including nursing homes and other congregate care facilities. He said, we've been fortunate to not have a major outbreak in any of the area's long-term care facilities, although there was an outbreak in a small group home. He says all of those involved are in quarantine while their close contacts have been identified and tested. Officials are also providing guidance to the home's owner. From the WNZF Newsroom, I'm John Arking.
Good news when it comes to the surge on hospital capacity. Wally DeCino is Chief Operating Officer of Advent Health Palm Coast.
The hospital has finally experienced some decrease in the hospitalization for COVID patients. For about 2 weeks, we probably were still hanging in that range where we call it the plateau, where we've seen the highest numbers for the past 4 months.
The decrease in hospitalizations was first noticed about 5 days ago.
We hope that this continues. And this is a result of our community actually taking serious the precautions that need to be in place. Wearing masks, social distancing, and etc.
DeCino says Advent Health remains prepared for the long haul and they feel they have enough personal protective gear and ventilators to handle another uptick. The hospital is also taking steps to keep everyone safe with a relatively new policy.
Now we're asking visitors that are bringing a patient into the emergency room to actually wait in their car, and once that patient is actually placed in a room, we will call that patient and allow them to go in. And this is to prevent and to keep the safety, to prevent the spread of anything in the waiting area.
A longtime Flagler Beach city employee has died from COVID-19. 66-year-old Bruce Garrison worked for the city sanitation department as a supervisor. Flagler Beach city manager Larry Newsom.
Bruce wasn't just an employee, he was a friend. Very dedicated employee, and he was always at work. He would, if you called him, even though he was off from work, he would respond. So, and of course, when you think about Flagler Beach, we're all like family. So we didn't lose an employee, we lost a family member.
Newsom says anyone who came into contact with Garrison has been tested for the virus.
Yesterday we learned that the antibody test does not tell many people much, but today we find out about a specific group.
The only group that really might be useful for is people who've in the last 3-4 months had an illness that with symptoms pretty typical for COVID, couldn't get tested, and would kind of like to know if they had it.
Flagler Medical Director Dr. Stephen Bickle said that when the antibody test is studied, scientists do look at the antibodies, but he said there is only one way to know if they work to prevent COVID-19.
Go through a season of flu or a season of COVID and see if that group gets it less. And if that's true, that means the antibodies are protective. If they get the same rate, then it means it's not, and we do not know that yet.
Dr. Bickle said that the test is really a big unknown, but he said that it may stand to reassure those who've had COVID symptoms recently. To listen to the interview, download the Flagler Radio app and then go to the Free for All Friday podcast. Tomorrow, what you need to know about COVID-19. From the WNZF Newsroom, I'm Deb Albertson.
A Flagler County Sheriff's Office police canine receives a donation of body armor.
Flagler County Sheriff's Office Canine Axel has received a bullet and stab protective vest thanks to a donation from the nonprofit Vested Interest in Canines. Vested Interest in Canines, established in 2009, is a 501c3 charity whose mission is to provide bullet and stab protective vest and other assistance to dogs of law enforcement and related agencies throughout the United States. Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staley.
The fundraising that allowed Vested Interest in Canines to donate the vest was a fundraiser hosted by Geraldine Marsh of the Women's Bailey Group at Grand Haven. We are always looking for ways to partner with charities and communities to bring money back to Flagler County to reduce the burden on our taxpayers, and this is just one example.
Since 2009, Vested Interest in Canines has provided close to 4,000 vests to canines in all 50 states at a value of nearly $7 million. From the WNZF Newsroom, I'm Rich Carroll.
And now you're up to date on Flagler's Morning News. I'm Amy Cherry.